Welcome back to another episode of Signal Shift with me, Rocky. Last week, I spoke about our Beta Imagination Lab, asking people to apply, and we've had an incredible response in terms of the caliber of participants we were looking for. So we're almost close to filling our group. We have possibly one, maximum two spots left. If that is something that sounds interesting and exciting to you, definitely think about it. You will get to use tools from futures thinking and foresight, as well as great neuroscientific tools and great psychological tools to really go through a process and a journey of reimagining work and career, to really understand your skills in a very different lens and to really start to imagine the work you're going to be doing in the future. There's a lot of imagination at play. It's fun, it's intense. There's a lot of work to do and a lot even for 4 weeks, but it's just the right amount of time to make some amazing discoveries. I find even in the world we live in now, people tend to have these blinkers, right, and constraints, and can only see this in terms of what's out there. Yes, AI is going to impact jobs. It's going to take away a lot of jobs. It is also going to lead to all kinds of new careers. And I think people don't have a great handle on that. So we're going to bring forth some of that data. We're going to help you understand how to analyze and assess and predict what's coming next, right? So you can be a couple of steps ahead. The details will be in the description box. Get that application in soon. We will probably be wrapping up that process towards the end of next week. Okay, so I hope it's something you consider, and I'm very excited about that and the cohort of people that are going to be in this Beta Imagination Lab. There's so much to talk about the future of healthcare and the transformation that AI and robotics will have on the industry. We're also at this very interesting time where so much is happening in the space with AI, but it's also coincided with the rise of things like GLP-1s, right? Ozempic, Ro, whatever you name it. There's so many brands now. I think, the groundbreaking, the exciting, the hope-giving part of AI really is in healthcare, where hopefully we'll come to that point where it really does revolutionize our health, where diseases, or large amount of them, can become history, right? That's a very hopeful utopian view of how things might play out over the next few years. I need to split the episodes into part 1 and part 2, and I will release part 2 next week. This is part 1. So let's dig into the first signal, right? One of the most transformative ways that AI has actually supported GLP-1s, speaking of GLP-1s, is through getting one startup to go from business development to the market in just 2 months. You may have seen the headlines around it, right? Matthew Gallagher, right? Within 2 months, this was in 2024, he only had $20,000. And he just used a good few AI tools and launched his startup. It's called MedVi, telehealth provider of GLP-1 weight loss drugs. He got 300 customers in the first month. The second month, it grew to 1,000. By 2025, the company had generated 401 million in sales, and they had track for 1.8 billion in sales this year. And, it's not that AI has supported anything in a medical development sense, right? Or that MedVi has even produced a drug. They are just capitalizing on being a middleman and getting a drug out to people. But what it is and what the signal is about and what this is about is that this is a tale of how pharma is going to grow, how they are going to be able to get more drugs out to us faster. If we think we've seen the height of supplements and wellness clinics and longevity polls, I don't think we're close to the peak. This is the foundation. We're still at the beginning. That's going to grow a lot more, and other things that are pointing again to this, and we're seeing this happen. Novo Nordisk, okay, they are the makers of Wegovy, are partnering with OpenAI for drug discovery. Words from their own spokesperson, right, in their Danish company, is to bring new and better treatment options to patients faster. Right? So ultimately using AI to analyze the data, come up with new drug ideas, reduce the time it takes for that medicine to ultimately get into our hands, right? Is exactly what all these companies are working on. Now, Novo already has other big AI initiatives, including one collaboration with Nvidia, right? To use a sort of sovereign AI supercomputer that they have to accelerate, again, drug discovery efforts. So they're really creating AI models and agents that can help with research, clinical development, that kind of thing. It's very clear that this is a priority right now, and it's a lot of competition between the companies, right? You've got Eli Lilly in the US, and then you have this band of companies like MedVi who just again are just coming in and changing how the market operates as well, right? But changing in the sense that, again, it simply means more drugs getting to us even faster. Faster approvals, faster timeline, more and more and more. So, there's a notion we've spoken about before, right? Which is, will there be one pill a day so that I don't feel hungry, I don't need to eat, I just feel great and I'm healthy? It doesn't seem so far away, does it? I mean, we already spoke about a company who's doing it right now. It was a whole handful of pills you had to take to get your nutritional intake, right? So it wasn't feasible. But the fact is that, in time, that'll easily be reduced and reduced down to one pill. And I think when this does happen, I don't think it's too far away, and I think it won't be considered ridiculous anymore when we get there, but we'll call it efficient, as we tend to do with these things. It's a game-changing time around longevity, weight loss, diabetes, and so many other diseases. But I do raise the question of how our relationship with food will fare. I don't get a chance to talk about this here, right? But this is something I'm very passionate about. And Sue and I would often talk about food in our signals. And I've actually written a book about this that I hope to publish real soon. But it brings me back to this notion of our relationship with food. And boy, that's going to be a very interesting journey because we are swinging across extremes, right? One is kind of no food needed, right? Like one pill, no food needed, don't even think about food, and kind of one pill or stuff yourself with no impact. That's okay. And neither sound like good options to me. They just sound exactly like that, like extremes. And we are becoming a society with a lot of extreme things happening. So it's something to watch there, right? We're going to see lots and lots of operational change and efficiency in healthcare. And I mean, a lot. It's really not even a question anymore of how much tech, right? That's not the question. The question now is how much human is needed in healthcare. Make no mistake, in this industry in particular, it is needed. The human is needed in the healthcare. That's the care part of it, right? Is the human part. But how much? I mean, I don't know. Is it robot doctors and human nurses? Is it human doctors and robot nurses? I don't know what that equation needs to look like. So this leads us into our second signal, which is telehealth robots. And these are becoming very popular and lots of rollouts increasing, right, around the globe, really. And it started as early as COVID when there was a need to do this, right? And so there was some experimentation with them. And now it's really just easier and so much faster to get that happening. Some North Carolina hospitals, right, are using a system called OmniCare telehealth robot, and it facilitates these remote consultations, especially when it's like specialists who are not generalized doctors who can just give generalized advice, but they're specialists who can't be everywhere at once, right? And kind of virtual bedside rounds, when it's just to check in on, where patients at before leaving and just in the healing process. And of course, they've done it really well, right? It's high definition video. It's a big 21-inch display. So it allows physicians who are really not on site to have this face-to-face time and to provide clinical care, but not worrying about the transportation, right? Of getting from one place to the next, which, doctors do struggle with between different clinics and that sort of thing, right? Or having their physical presence if it really isn't needed and they're not needed to be there. This isn't dramatically innovative. That's not what this is. It's quite a simple concept. Like I said, it started from COVID already. Some even say that the US is kind of a little bit behind in terms of this, right? Because in a lot of places where you have rural villages, you have remote areas, it's exactly what specialists have been doing, right? In remote clinics in a native village in Alaska, they've been using telemedicine since the 70s. In the developing world, again, a similar thing, right, is people may not have computers, but everybody has a smartphone. So doctors would do things like x-ray consults via smartphones. X-rays and other scans are now recorded digitally rather than to full. And looking at scans, right, using your iPhone is accurate, right? They have compared the accuracy of radiologists looking at these scans on the phone versus looking at it on a large computer workstation in the hospital. And the evaluation of the images on the iPhone matched the accuracy and the diagnostic ability when it was done on a computer workstation as well, right? So you can read data off of a phone. Okay, so in many senses, this has been happening. This already happens. It's nothing new. It's not dramatically innovative, but we're going to see more and more and more faster. Unfortunately, we have this system, right, of a doctor's time equals lots of money. Because of that, hospitals will take up whatever means necessary to cut those costs. Now, that almost sounds optimistic in the sense that, well, maybe that'll make healthcare cheaper for us. I think that remains to be seen. Is that going to make it cheaper for us, or is it going to put more profits in the hands of those who own hospitals? The good of this, of course, is that, doctors often can't make all these rounds in a timely manner, or they can't spend enough time with patients, right? Because you really have to build in the time to move around, get around, especially if you're getting across multiple departments, units, or buildings, or going from one location to another, right? And this can really help in those kinds of cases, right? Especially, like we said, for specialist physicians who are rare and there aren't many and have to consult in more than one space, and in rural and in underserved communities, right? To give people access to just more qualified physicians, okay, and also those more specialized doctors. And then there's areas where it makes complete sense, right? Like dietitians. Okay, so virtual dietitians. Of course, virtual therapy has been going on for the longest time, and it's extremely useful, effective. Not only that, it's a very normalized part of how people do therapy these days, right? So it's not, the expectation is not that when you're seeing your therapist, you go to an office, right? That's not at all the expectation anymore. But where do we draw the line and say that this has to be a human function? So where this gets concerning, right? And there's a reason why a doctor needs to see a patient, right? So even if you are in post-care and you're just healing and something could crop up that a doctor or a nurse cannot pick up via a screen. And yes, even with monitors and sensors and all this data, it might be very rare that that does happen, but there is still always a possibility, right? It's why you can never truly diagnose unless it includes the actual live physical assessment, not just your bloods and your data. Be one simple, smallest little thing that has to be picked up by the eye, and the eye present in the room. So that's, of course, the concerning part about this. But there's another part of this that is for anyone, right? If you've been in hospital, if you've visited or had somebody in hospital, one of the most reassuring things, even when it's the smallest procedure, but if you are staying in a hospital, even if it's just as an outpatient or for a night, one of the most reassuring things is to see either that the highest level of nurse who's going to come speak to you, or your doctor will come and see you, and not just you, but sometimes your family even. And it's not just about the information. It's not even about the assessment. It's nothing about that. What it's about is human reassurance. It's the trust that you can only come across in physical presence, right? Physical presence is needed for that. And I mean, sure, virtually I would get some of that, but not all of it. It wouldn't be the same. And that's a very important part of that word, care, right, in healthcare. Now, we're going to have these sorts of situations crop up, right? Like the situation where a family is now filing a lawsuit after their family member died in the care of a telehealth ICU doctor. This is a University of Connecticut dental student, right, who died in an intensive care unit that was being overseen remotely by a tele-doctor. And so the family, of course, filed a lawsuit. He was just 24. He had abdominal pain, and I believe it was alcohol-induced pancreatitis, intense dehydration, and he was in the ICU. This was a high-risk case, but apparently it was staffing issues that prevented this constant and consistent care when he was hospitalized. The important thing to remember here is that it's not the technology, right? It's how it's deployed, and what are the guardrails? I mean, why does an ICU have a telehealth robot? I can totally understand use cases where it makes sense, right? But not in an ICU where we know it is critical and the smallest thing is life or death, right? Telehealth robots certainly cannot be the band-aid to every staff shortage, because they will not cut it to that extent. The oppositional question, of course, is, was it better than having nothing at all? So is it not better than having no care at all or simply sitting around to die in a waiting room? Is the issue the bigger problems that surround health care? And that's absolutely a fair perspective as well. It's all very experimental. And it is a little scary because, it's experimental with our lives. So choose your hospitals carefully where you have the power, for all kinds of reasons, right? From the cost of medical care to these sorts of things now. But I would really understand the sort of technology that your hospital is deploying, and your doctors as well, and what their approach is and how they're going to be experimenting over the next few years, because this directly impacts your life. So I think it's really important to know that. On a lighter note, I will add, I as I was doing my research on these stories and reading up about it, someone made a funny comment online that I just had to share. And the comment was, someone said, imagine, somebody goes into a coma in the last year or two, and this year or next year, they wake up out of the coma, but they see either a proper robot or these telehealth screens, right, come up to as they come out of the coma. They'll kind of think they're waking up in 2050, right? And they're not. It could just be 6 months from when this happened to them. But it's just funny because it speaks to the pace of all this technological change that we are in, and we are going to see rapidly, specifically in industries like healthcare. What are your thoughts on all this? What's your thought on a telehealth ICU doctor, and how would you feel if you were in that situation? What is happening with the clinics and hospitals and doctors in your area where you stay? What are you seeing happening? So either ways, thank you so much for being here, and until next time, bye for now.